our webinar on API-first agile development. I'm Matt Steele, and I'm a digital engagement lead here with Apigee and Google Cloud, and I'm joined by Mudit Porwar, who's a principal engineer at T-Mobile. Digital business is fueled by quick go-to-market and constant iteration. Legacy approaches to SDLC are not suited for this agility and velocity. If only a few of your teams use modern agile techniques, your organization risks creating silos that can slow development and undermine competitiveness. Your shift to agile methodologies will not be immediate. It's a journey and will take time to implement management and testing procedures for continuous delivery. You will need to establish product backlog approaches, as well as align on funding processes and metrics that support agile development. Later in this session, you are going to hear from Mudit at T-Mobile, who has designed and developed an automated API Proxy creation tool using the OpenAPI specification as input, and they have implemented CI/CD pipelines for APIs for the cross-functional development teams across many lines of business. From our combined experience at Google, the first start to any adoption is a mindset shift. Agile software development just makes sense. And if you've been through traditional waterfall development, you know about the big handovers, big team silos, and difficulty in collaboration and plan change. The values and principles were derived from and underpin a broad range of software development frameworks, but primarily seek to solve the root causes of the software development in waterfall. Agile can be adopted in many different software settings within a digital value chain. For today's webinar, we will focus on an agile method of developing APIs by the API team. A core part of agile is to have one cross-functional API team. This means the API team should be largely self-sufficient with as few outside dependencies as possible. Here's what that API team could look like. The core API team is in the middle, with one team made up of an API product owner, API developers, QA engineers, and a Scrum Master in the inner ring. They're constantly working together. The outer ring represents core team members who may not be fully dedicated to the API team, might be partially allocated over time to support multiple API teams. The role of connecting with non-core team members are represented with arrows showing specific individuals who should take ownership of these key activities. For teams starting out with APIs, one of the biggest pitfalls is taking on too much scope. A great way to adapt to changing plans is to reduce the size of each scope increment. Developing software in a new way can be difficult for inexperienced teams, so a smaller scope is even more ideal for them. Size the scope of your API project right and focus on the minimum viable product. What is the least we need to build that will still deliver a business outcome is a question that you should ask yourself. The picture here shows 3 different ways to building a transport device over 4 releases with the business goal of getting from point A to point B. The first example should be avoided, which is building incrementally. After each release, there's no business value, since we only get from point A to point B until the very end of release 4. The second example is a little better. It achieves the goal of getting from A to B in each release with a working device, but it forces the team to rework the product in every release, leading to a lot of waste and throwaway work. The third example is much, much better. It's the MVP approach. We can transport from A to B in each release, but we have minimal rework since we build on the top of the previous release in a smart sequence. You can think of API development in just this way. Deliver the right MVP, pay close attention to the sequence you're releasing your new APIs. To be really efficient, it's not enough to release often, but to release with quality and the least amount of effort. Instead of writing test cases after development is complete, write the test case and define the success criteria up front in design before development starts. This practice comes in 2 flavors, test-driven development and behavior-driven development. Both are very similar and achieve the same outcome. Both methods output code that can be then automated by QA engineers who can string together a series of unit tests and tests written through TDD or BDD to becoming integration level tests for the API. By writing test cases that are programmable scripts, we can run the test and over, taking a huge load off of the traditional QA bottleneck. It makes turnaround times of the QA feedback loop incredibly fast. The principle of automation and quality is an essential part of agile transformation. No other practice represents this better than setting up a continuous integration and continuous deployment pipeline. The shortened acronym is CI/CD. The main goal is to prevent integration hell, where multiple developers begin integrating large chunks of code near the later phases of a project. To avoid this drama, this picture illustrates a recurring cycle from code check-in to testing to deployment of the API bundle to updating the API documentation. The purpose is to do this cycle on a frequent basis or even on a per code commit basis by using software like Jenkins and programming to move code through each of these steps. This process can be largely automated, and this reduces human effort and increases the frequency that this cycle is run, that errors are caught early starting from the first week of coding. This practice of mastering CI/CD is essential in adopting agile development, and T-Mobile is going to share how they have built automation to support a large, successful federated API program across many lines of business. Now I'm going to hand it off to Mudit, who's going to speak to you about their API journey.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, and good morning to all of you joining us for the T-Mobile API First Agile Development webinar. My name is Mudit Purwar. I'm a principal engineer at T-Mobile, and I oversee and contribute to the DevOps and CI/CD initiatives under the API Center for Enablement at T-Mobile. So here's what I'm going to do today. I'll give you a brief context and backdrop of API's development at T-Mobile, Apigee API platform's footprint within T-Mobile, structure of API teams and governance model. Then I'll walk you through the API development process and the technology stack used for CI/CD. Finally, I'll showcase and demonstrate some of the API first tools used to facilitate the end-to-end API development process. After the demo, floor will be open for Q&A. So let's get started. T-Mobile started on the API journey roughly 4 years ago. When we started, we evaluated multiple API platforms. But Apigee API platform stood out with its rich features with respect to security, analytics, mediation, inbuilt plug-and-play policies, developer ease of use, and productivity, along with providing ways to monetize some of the APIs. Initially, we started with 2 API teams on a digital transformation project. And since then, they have grown up to 35 plus cross-functional API development teams, which we refer to as domain API teams internally here at T-Mobile. All these domain API teams have distributed teams across the United States and other parts of the world. So whenever a new line of business wants to develop APIs, it brings in developers with varied level of understanding of an API platform. For us to bring the domain teams to a common API platform understanding. Hence, we developed some of the API first tools to facilitate the common ground rules and abstracting some of the process complexities. Today, we have 1,000 plus APIs generating 1 billion plus monthly transactions in production. We foresee a healthy growth pattern in all API development at T-Mobile. And currently we are working with Google Apigee team on a strategy to meet our future needs in line with our growth pattern. So let's look at the current footprint of Apigee within T-Mobile. We currently have Apigee planets running in T-Mobile data centers managed by API Center of Enablement. Also, we subscribe to Apigee Cloud or Apigee SaaS offering, which is managed by the Apigee Google team. The different API planets are used for different use cases depending on the API consumer, backend, and other API performance and SLA requirements. Our on-premise is mostly used by our T-Mobile internal applications, and vice versa, SaaS is mostly used for any API consumer outside of T-Mobile network, such as T-Mobile partners, vendors, and etc. And the cloud API platform in AWS is used by our T-Mobile internal applications hosted on AWS T-Mobile's virtual private cloud. And it's also managed by API Center of Enablement team at T-Mobile. Moving on to the API team structure and governance model. We have the Team ACE, API Center for Enablement, which is at the program level and foresees all the API governance and best practices evangelism, along with providing shared services such as DevOps, CI/CD, monitoring, security to the domain teams. Each domain API team, such as order management, customer, billing, promotion. Now let's look at the API development process. API development at T-Mobile takes the top-down approach of designing the OpenAPI specification or the Swagger for the APIs. Swagger brings a common understanding of the API within the team and across the teams. Once Swagger is complete, reviewed, and approved, an API developer just needs to feed the Swagger to the API Proxy generator tool, along with providing some parameters by filling a form. Proxy generator tool is in sync with other CI/CD tools, takes care of generating the API proxy code, pushing it to Bitbucket, generating a CI/CD pipeline, linting the API proxy code, and pushing the API proxy artifacts to Artifactory, and deploying the API proxy to Apigee Edge. During the API development lifecycle, after the API proxy is deployed to Apigee Edge, there is one most common task associated to onboarding an API consumer to consume the API, which is handled by the Abort tool. CI/CD technology stack, which facilitates the complete API development process at T-Mobile. I assume most of you would be familiar with these technologies illustrated in this slide. Nevertheless, we use Bitbucket for our source code management repository needs. Jenkins provides us with the pipeline capabilities. Obviously, Apigee is our API management platform. Bash, Groovy, and Maven power all the pipeline runtime capabilities underneath the hood. Artifactory is used to publish the API proxy artifacts. Apigee lint and T-Mobile lint are used for linting through the proxy code. Cucumber and Newman for our behavioral-driven testing and functional API testing. And lastly, Slack for our pipeline event notifications. Okay then, let me introduce you to the T-Mobile's API first tools, which we play a vital role in our API program. Dev Center is the mecca for API developers. This is where a new developer or an experienced developer would go for all the API development needs. With respect to tools, frameworks supported, libraries and SDKs available, to understand the processes, best practices, etc. Also to accelerate the API adoption across T-Mobile. And all of the subsequent tools are available within the Dev Center. I think you already know what ProxyGen tool is for. It initiates the API proxy creation process and hands it over to the ADP CI/CD pipelines. API config tool facilitates the API developers to make quick runtime changes to the API configuration without logging to the Apigee Edge console. Lastly, Abort facilitates the API consumer onboarding to the Apigee API platform with an API publisher approval workflow. Whoa, that's a lot to chew on. Let's jump to the demo real quick. Let me present to you T-Mobile's Dev Center with API first vision at its core. At the heart of Dev Center, it showcases a feature content window, wherein it portrays the latest and greatest of tools, technologies, and frameworks which T-Mobile developers can leverage to create innovative experiences for the T-Mobile customers. Currently, the featured content is T-Mobile's in-house developed API framework, T-Mobile API Access Process, better known by its acronym TAP. TAP is recommended by Digital Security Organization and API Center for Enablement at T-Mobile to secure and mitigate limitations of other security frameworks like OAuth 2.0, Mutual TLS, etc. Let's not go any deeper in the TAP framework discussion, as it requires a session of its own to understand and justify the benefits and the value that TAP brings. Below the feature content window, we have the development lifecycle stages, which basically represent the actual software development SDLC. The significance is that Dev Center customizes each developer journey based on technology, framework, language, platform, and specific processes to T-Mobile. In today's webinar, we will complete the Apigee API journey. So let's start a developer journey. And let's jump into the Apigee API developer journey. Again, each developer journey is customized to specific requirements of technologies, framework, language, or platform. As I have already designed my OpenAPI specification or Swagger for today's demo API, I will dive straight into the develop stage. For a new API developer, there are specific instructions on how to use the API Proxy generator tool. Let's review the documentation real quick. Pretty standard stuff, overview of process and step-by-step instructions as to how to use the proxy generator tool. Let's go ahead and use the API Proxy generator tool to generate our demo API proxy. Single sign-on using Okta. So I'll go ahead and sign in using my NT credentials. Let's upload the Swagger to Proxy Generator tool. Developer has an option to either provide URL link or upload the Swagger from the local workstation. For this webinar, I will be uploading the Swagger from my local machine. Here is the Swagger for the IoT demo API for this webinar. Let's upload it. As soon as I uploaded the Swagger, ProxyGen tool initiated a lint on this Swagger and provided a lint score of 94%, which is a pretty good score. But at T-Mobile, we aim for 100% score for all our APIs. Now to look at the details of the score, we can click on the score to get a detailed lint report. Lint report outlines a detailed list of errors and which particular error lost how many points. As we can see, where the 6 points were deducted for this IoT demo API. Now a developer can go back and fix these errors to get a score of 100%. To begin the API creation process, ProxyGen tool has a form to be filled out. Any help needed to fill out this form is outlined in this help with this form link. Help page provides the details on each input field in the form and the description about that field. Just in case the developer needs any help with the particular field, he or she can refer to this help form. Let me fill the form real quick to start the API creation process. Bitbucket personal access token for the ProxyGen tool to access a domain Bitbucket project. For the purpose of this demo, we have created a test Bitbucket project. AKIM ID is a T-Mobile asset identifier. specification path is again a T-Mobile internal process, Clearwater process to share API specifications among different domain teams within T-Mobile. Project name and number are specific effort for this API is being developed for. And target server is the backend point where we want this API proxy to route our client requests to. So I've used the API config tool to already create my target servers. So I'll go ahead and just select the target servers that are already available in the target environment. And since we have two different endpoints to route to for this API, I'm going to select another one. And then since we have multiple targets to route to, we have to allocate or assign operation IDs to each target endpoint that we want those operations to be routed to. And then Slack channel for notification from the continuous delivery pipelines. And a team email address. Since we have filled all the required fields in the Proxygen creation field, so we will just hit the Begin API creation process. Proxygen tool has started the API creation process. At the end of this process, we will have a link to the Bitbucket repository where the code for the IoT demo API has been checked into. Looks like the API proxy has been created. Let's go and review the API proxy code. Here we go. Here is our IoT demo services API being checked into our test API Bitbucket project. Let's review the API proxy code. Project.yaml holds all the API configuration and deployment information for the CI/CD pipeline. If an API developer wants to deploy the API proxy to other Apigee environments in the development or testing cycle, all he or she has to do is update the deploy list to include the target environment. If he or she wants to deploy to production, they also have to provide their team's LDAP security group in the list. Jenkins file references the build library to load at runtime for the API proxy build. Finally, the version folder contains the actual API proxy code in the raw form. This code needs to be compiled with the mandatory common policies and target policies which will be injected during the build time using our CI/CD process in the Jenkins. Next, let's go and check our Jenkins CI/CD pipeline for this particular API proxy. Here is the EDP Jenkins, or the Enterprise Delivery Pipeline at T-Mobile. Let's log in real quick. As we can see, there are projects configured from across the enterprise. The project that we are interested in for today's webinar is Test API project. We see there are 12 repositories within this project, and the API repository we are interested in is for our API proxy is IoT Services v1. We can see it only has a master branch, and that's the only branch which the API proxy gen process creates for the initial proxy creation. When we click on the master branch, we see a continuous delivery pipeline comprising of multiple stages for an API proxy. A given API pipeline starts with certain T-Mobile process checks, does a static code analysis, builds the API proxy code, runs a security policies lint, validates the API proxy configuration against the target deployment environment specified in the project YAML, and if all the prior stages pass successfully, moves to the deployment stage. Once successfully deployed, if BDD test cases are written, it runs the Cucumber functional tests. Also, we have an inbuilt event service embedded into the pipeline, which registers the status of each stage within the pipeline for auditing and statistics purposes. Our deployment tracker and config tracker dashboards are powered by this event service. Let's go and check if on the Apigee Edge console whether our IoT demo service API is successfully deployed or not. Here I can see that IoT demo services v1 API proxy has been successfully deployed to our target environment. Now, let's go and onboard a new API client to consume the IoT demo service API using the Abort tool. Here I am back in Dev Center, but this time as an API consumer of the IoT demo services API. Let's look for the Abort application under the Manage Lifecycle stages. Let's log into the Abort application. Single sign-on using Okta. I will use my NTID credentials to log in to the Abort application. Here we can see all the applications that are available at T-Mobile and registered to the asset management database. Let me search for my client application groove. And here is the groove application. Let's click on them. I can see the app name and the API products that are associated with the given app name. Also, it shows the client ID and the secret key for the selected Apigee organization from the top-down. Since the IoT demo service API is available currently only in T-Mobile A organization, let's select the T-Mobile A organization from the drop-down. Now to access new APIs, I have to explicitly request adding that API proxy to my application API product. So I'm going to click on the API product, and I can see that demo services API is not available yet. So I'm going to hit the add proxies button, and it's going to show me a drop down. I'm going to filter it. I can see that IoT demo services API is available. I will click on that, and I'll fill in the request reason as testing new service, and I'll say a traffic of expected traffic of 100,000 in a given day, and I'm going to submit this request. As soon as I submit this request, the Abort application triggers a API publisher approval workflow, which is basically informing the API publisher about the new client requesting access to their APIs, but also seeking their approval. Only when the API publisher approves the request, the given API proxy is added to the client's API product. Let's see if my API request has been approved yet or not. Woohoo! My request is approved. Now I can consume the latest IoT Demo Services API. Let's go and check the IoT Demo Services API real time. Okay, so let's copy the client ID and secret to our API testing tool Postman. So let's copy the client ID first. And the secret now. We have already pre-populated the auth endpoint for the T-Mobile ASP02 endpoint. So we're going to send a request to generate an auth token. And here we get an access token back from the auth endpoint. So next we will do is test one of the APIs, which is just getting the features of a given template from the IoT Demo Services API Proxy. I'm going to go click on this get template. Everything is pre-filled, the URL, and we have initiated. Let's initiate a trace on the Apigee edge to see if the request is coming fine on Apigee. So I'm going to trigger this request. Authorization header, the bearer token has already been variabilized and generated in the previous step. So I'm going to send this request. And voila, we get a valid response back from our backend in AWS, which basically is giving the features based on the template ID we provided to the API. So let's go and check if Apigee received this request or not. So here you go, Apigee went through a bunch of process and Apigee did receive this request of Apigee IoT V1 services. Let's go back and check our second API, which is a post API, wherein we are adding a new subscriber to our IoT Demo Services APIs. I've already pre-populated the body and payload for this API, and I'm going to send this request again. And voila, we get a valid response back and a new subscriber is created with the details returned in the response body. Let's go and see if Apigee received this request. Yes, Apigee did receive this request and everything looks good. So now let's go and see how an API developer can make runtime changes to their API proxy configurations. I'm back again in Dev Center. So I'm gonna go to our API config tool under test and deploy, the tools and API configuration tool. Let's go and log into API configuration tool. Let's see how API config tool really creates value for API developers from various domain teams at T-Mobile. We have a really simplified UI for the various runtime Apigee API configurations, such as target server, key value map, and cache. We have also abstracted the infrastructure complexity of SaaS and on-prem and organization names, environment names, so on and so forth. As you can see, it's pretty rudimentary. Based on your planet selection, the subsequent drop-down values are populated. Whether you select production and non-production, based on that, whether it's going to be SaaS, on-premise, and then if it's SaaS, there will be a bunch of organizations that are available in SaaS, and if it's on-premise, it will provide organizations that are available in on-premise. And we control the access to the production planet access by whitelisting individual LDAP security groups. Hence, not everyone is authorized to make production runtime changes, but only a few select individuals from given domain teams. Let's quickly update one of our IoT Demo Services API target environment in our integration environment. First, let's view where our current target server is pointing to in our integration environment. And we want to check the DIT. It's in non-production, location is SaaS, organization T-Mobile DIT, and Dev1 and the target server name is AWS IT Demo Auto Target. We're going to view this target. Okay, looks like it's pointing to AWS instance where Kubernetes cluster running in AWS. So we're going to change the host name for this to point to a T-Mobile backend or Apigee backend. So we're going to update this. And since it's one way, we'll just say update. So behind the scenes, it's doing two things. It's going and updating the source code management repository, which basically was updated when the proxy was created. So it goes and updates the source code management repository behind the scenes. And once the source code management repository is successfully updated, it goes and populates that target in the target Apigee environment. Hey, looks like my target server update is successful. Let's go and view again whether it successfully updated the target to the new endpoint that we requested the change for. So here we can say now it's pointing to Apigee endpoint. And it also sends a Slack message notification once the target server or any other configuration update or creation is complete. With that, it's a wrap, folks. To sum it all up, T-Mobile's API first tools like Dev Center, API Proxy, API config tool, abort tool, and the CI/CD process, which we saw today, are built around Google's Apigee API platform to enhance developer productivity, simplify developer experiences to increase developer velocity, reduce friction to deploy APIs from development to production, which reduces the time to market APIs. In a nutshell, they make an API developer's life easy. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mudit. We are now going to move into the questions section of the webinar. We've got some great questions coming in, and feel free to post any additional ones as you think of them. So first one for Mudit here is kind of a comment and a question. So T-Mobile has made great progress on their API journey and seems to be very mature. Can you share a couple of the big challenges that you've run into over the years?
Sure, Matt. I think one of the big challenges we had was with respect to developers being new to the API platform, right? So Apigee was new as well. And then Apigee API platform specific terms, like what is an API product, what is a developer app. And then the other challenge we faced was people were so, they wanted to just develop on the Apigee edge, which was a bit challenging because each developer with his knowledge set was, we were not able to enforce any standards as such. And then it was creating some security risk on the T-Mobile side. Hence, we wanted to move to source code management based development and then CI/CD process to enforce some of the processes. These are the kind of challenges we overcome over the years. So yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Mudit. Another question for you. So with the Apigee hybrid product coming soon, is T-Mobile planning to use this solution in the architecture along with SaaS, cloud, and on-premise that you're leveraging today?
Oh, boy. The growth that we are seeing at T-Mobile, right, in terms of number of subscribers subscribing to T-Mobile services, and some of the other big news making news around, right? So for us, the elasticity is the key. So yes, to answer your question, yes, we are working with the Google Apigee team. Currently, they're doing a POC on the Apigee hybrid, which is available in beta. So, and we do have plan to run certain workloads once Apigee hybrid is available in GA.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for that. Cool. So now that you've federated out your API development across these many lines of business and domains, can you share any velocity numbers related to the number of APIs that are onboarding on a monthly basis? Just kind of ballpark. Don't need to be too specific.
Yeah, like I said, right, during the presentation, we had we are running 1,000 plus API proxies, right? And at any given week, we have 100 API proxy deployment happening in production, which is totally in automated fashion. And then for the new API proxies, we are onboarding almost between 10 to 20 API proxies in a given month, which are brand new.
Awesome. Great. Cool. There's a couple questions here related to consumption side, right? So I think most of what we talked about in this session was really on the producer side, right? The API teams that are developing APIs within T-Mobile. There's one question here related to just basic, how do I get access to T-Mobile APIs as a consuming developer?
Oh, yeah. So we have an API portal called developer.tmobile.com. You can go on that portal and then access, you have to initially sign up. And then once you sign up and once you receive the credentials, you'll be able to play around with our APIs within that portal. So please go ahead and check out the developer.tmobile.com portal.
Great. Awesome. And how much of that is kind of homegrown from T-Mobile versus leveraging, some of the Drupal capabilities from Apigee?
To tell you, frankly, Matt, we initially started with the Drupal capabilities, right? And then we thought, because some of our needs were unique, so we had to customize a bit in terms of to meet our needs. So yes, to begin with, yes, we started with Drupal. And then we pivoted a little bit to have some customized features within the developer portal.
Awesome. So you're kind of leveraging some of the Drupal foundational modules, but you've extended that quite a bit to meet your needs. Great.
That's correct. That's correct, yeah.
Okay, great. How about any preferred tools for creating Swagger? I know there's a lot out there. The Swagger editor, Swagger code gen, Swagger UI. Do you have a perspective on kind of a preferred tool within T-Mobile to create Swaggers?
Yes. So the design aspect of it, which I did not demonstrate today, but we have internally customized, custom developed tool called Recite, which our API developers use to design the Swagger and then the data modeling aspect of it. And then that's what we prefer basically internally.
Awesome. Great. Again, on the consumption side here, so onboarding customers, partners to your API platform, any specific challenges that you have as you onboard those partners, trying to make it more self-service and frictionless to get them on the platform?
Yes. So what we've done is we have our partners and vendors, right, who have our systems integrated with T-Mobile or their systems vice versa, right? So we have this abort tool which facilitates all the onboarding of partners and vendors as well. So we haven't externalized this yet. We are working on that feature, wherein we will provide access to our partners and vendors who can self-service or they can onboard themselves on the APIs. To consume our APIs on that tool. So that feature is coming from within the abort tool that I demonstrated earlier.
Awesome. Great. Cool. So yeah, thanks for sharing all that about the CI/CD process. Curious, do you guys leverage things like shared flows for security and authorization? And is the CI/CD pipeline injecting those shared flows into your API proxies?
That's an awesome question, right? So if you are working on Apigee API development and then having your APIs being deployed to the Apigee platform, so you would be familiar with shared flows and all the security and other policies that are available as plug and play within Apigee. So what we've done is, as a part of Center of Excellence team, and in partner with our digital security organization, we have picked and choose which policies should be mandatory in each and every API proxy that goes into the API platform. So what our CI/CD process does is, basically in the build or the compilation time, we inject those shared flows by default in every API proxy that goes out of that pipeline and deploys to Apigee API. So yes, we are leveraging shared flows towards full capabilities within Apigee.
Awesome. Definitely a best practice. Thank you for sharing that. Question here about just kind of the overall architecture you shared, that you are leveraging SaaS and cloud, and you've even got some on-premise as well. There's a question around micro gateway. I know you shared that you are planning to do some things with the hybrid beta that's coming out. Are you leveraging the Apigee micro gateway in your infrastructure at all today?
We did a POC, but we pivoted it because the Apigee product itself was moving too fast, right? So if you look at it now, we want to move with Apigee hybrid because that sounds more promising to us in the long run because of how the Apigee product roadmap is moving for the future. So to answer that, we don't have any production workloads in in the micro gateway.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate all the answers, Mudit, and you walking us through this. There's a lot of comments in here, too, about just, very impressive implementation, nice work, great job. So I appreciate you joining us today and sharing your journey with us, Mudit. It's been very helpful for me and for, I think, everybody on the webinar today. So with that, I think we're going to wrap up. I appreciate everybody joining today. We had a big group, and it was a really good session. So we're going to wrap up.
Thank
you,
Matt,
I hope you all
for
have a
having
great
us.
rest of it. Yep. All right. Thanks, Mudit. All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you.